fans, welcome to this January 12th edition of the Courier Sports Department's Paperboyz. I'm Doug Newhoff. To my left is Jim Nelson, and to my right is Nick Materos. Let's look back first at last night's national championship game. I was in here working, so I was kind of watching with one eye and working with the other, but great football game, lots of big plays. There was a few things, I guess it didn't unfold exactly the way I thought maybe it would. I didn't think that Clemson's passing game would gouge Alabama's defense for the big plays that it did. Deshaun Watson had 400 and some yards passing. Really didn't see that coming. I thought he might get loose a few times with the read option stuff, and which he did in scrambling out of pass protection. But so that was a little bit of a surprise. And I certainly didn't think that Nick Saban would ever pull an onside kick out of his bag of tricks in a tie game with whatever there was, 10 and a half, 11 minutes to play.
Boy, it was a perfect call.
It was great.
Yeah, boy, it changed the game. It was it. That was like, I mean,
I've never seen a kick like that. I mean, that caught him in stride. It's just like a perfect chip shot there. It's crazy.
It was incredibly well executed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for the guy got it up in the air in the right spot of the field.
And I think Clemson, I thought you had to have 5 guys forward, but it seemed like they only had 4 guys forward a lot of times, and they were bunched together. And so it's perfect, and they just had that end guy just sprinted straight towards the thing. I mean, it was an easy over the.
And I'm sure the Clemson coaching staff never thought that they would pull up something like that out of their hat either at that point in the game. You think of Nick Saban and you think about the Mr. Stoic, even keel, don't let the emotion take control, and he pulls something like that and changes the course of the game. And to Alabama's credit, they've been there, they've done that, and once they got a little bit of momentum, I agree with you. I thought that was the turning point in the game, and after that, it just didn't seem like there was any way they were going to get beat, no matter how many big plays Clemson made. Yeah.
It was, I think that what's the takeaway, I watched, some of those national championship games when I'm not really a big fan of either team. I'm not a fan, or I watched that every play. It was an incredible game. It was, I think, the 2 best teams, now looking back at it. I didn't see 85 points getting scored because both those defenses are lights out, But then Alabama took advantage. Clemson lost their star quarterback in the first half. Looked like a hamstring. And boy, they really found the mismatches with that tight end. He had 4 or 5 catches for 203 yards. I mean, yeah. And they came on like 3rd down plays too, where they totally baffled him, and he came out of that last one, that 50-yarder there on 3rd. I mean, Clemson makes a stop there, they have a chance to win the game, and boy, that was a great play, and the tight end had a great play, but he was fast for a tight end.
Those were 2 just really good football teams, yeah. And I was just looking at some of the video as the game was going on. A couple times they had Derrick Henry standing next to Nick Saban, and my God, that guy must be 6'4".
Yeah, they had, did you see that guy that was out in the leather jacket and the jeans? That was Mark Ingram, their star running back a few years ago. And he was like 8 inches shorter and half the size of Derrick Henry, and this was their star. He went on to the pro,
Just some incredible athletes
yeah.
on that field last night. It was fun. It was fun to watch from that perspective. Watch guys like that make those kind of plays. We don't get to see that every day. And
no.
I agree. We had the 2 right teams in the championship, as it all turned out, and either one could have won. And I think you still walked away and said that was a great football game.
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
It's nice not having anything invested in it on a personal level. So, let's talk a little bit about the NFL playoffs. Steelers pull one out at the end against the Bengals because Cincinnati has a little meltdown. A couple of bad fouls at the end. Vontae's perfect kind of cheap shot at that receiver drew that penalty, and then in the ensuing discussion, I guess, Pac-Man Jones, what got in the official's face?
The voice of reasoning in the NFL.
Exactly, yeah. Says the wrong thing, they get another 15-yard penalty, put Pittsburgh in field goal range, kick the field goal, boom, game over, Cincinnati, bye-bye, again.
That was 3 plays, three things. The 2 penalties and then the fumble. They get the big turnover, or stop, or whatever it was, and the first play, the running back fumbles it back. It was like, oh, Jesus, this is Bengals football right here. Mm-hmm. But those were 2 very, selfish plays, both on Perfect and Jones' part. I mean, self-imploding.
It just kind of shows a lack of discipline and a lack of being in those situations enough times, I think. A lot of teams get through that because they've been there and they know that you can't overreact in those situations. You gotta keep your head. And Cincinnati's a little bit of a loose cannon, I guess, in some respects, so. So that's how that one plays out. Then we get the Chiefs, actually putting a pretty good beat down on the Texans, 30-0. J.J. Watt was a little beat up, so, it's not entirely fair to say that they demolished Houston's defense, but Kansas City's playing pretty well.
Yeah, they are playing pretty well, and I think anybody would say Houston was a surprise team to be there. They won. They had 4 different quarterbacks that won games from this year. They never really had a starting quarterback, but they had a really good defense, and they did enough on offense to win in a very weak division. So, but the Chiefs are looking good. Alex Smith played a real good game, and you kind of like that team.
Yeah, the quarterback play is definitely the difference in that game with the Texans, you could tell. And impressive work by the Chiefs, too. They lost Charles at the beginning of the year, the guy that looked like he's going to carry that offense. And for them to get to this point, they've really put things together, and their defense has played great.
Yep, plugged in a couple new guys and really haven't missed a beat with their running game. I mean, they've been good. So then we go over to the NFC, and
I don't want to talk about that.
the Seahawks 10, the Vikings 9. Unbelievable. Blair Walsh misses a 27-yard field goal. Shorter than an extra point these days. And you could just tell right off his foot, he just yanked it left, and unbelievable.
It was hard. That was the same. It wasn't self-inflicted, but again, it was like 3 plays. The Vikings really outplayed the Seahawks for most of that game, and 3 plays cost them. And the big one, is Adrian Peterson's fumble that led to the points there.
The crazy thing about that game, the only touchdown was scored off of a fluke play, too, where the ball gets snapped over Wilson's head. He finds Lockett, gets down there. I mean, just a very odd game. Neither team really scored a true touchdown in that entire game.
No, that play would haunt me too. I mean, but if you remember that play, watch it. The Vikings had 5 guys narrowing on him, and they all went to his right. He's right-handed, or all went to his left hand. They all ran at the left, and they basically left the right off where his right-handed, where he had to roll out.
Yep.
I mean, none of them, if Captain Munnerlyn was the guy that overran that play, if he would have broke down and set an edge there, that would have allowed those other 4 guys maybe to converge and, not allowed, but he went for the big play. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
We saw, for one thing, for sure, how difficult it is to play football in sub-zero weather. They didn't even attempt like some 45-yard field goals that normally they wouldn't have even thought twice about. I mean, they just went ahead and went for it on 4th down or punted it. And the punters were only getting about 25, 30 yards, it seemed like, and the ball must have been really difficult to catch. You saw a few balls go through people's hands. And
it was so cold, apparently, they broke the horn. The horn shattered, apparently. It got so cold, and they tried to move it, and it shattered. I saw a picture of it today on Twitter. It was kind of funny. It had some Norwegian name. I can't pronounce it, but the horn, whatever they call that horn, which it shattered, it broke in 2.
So it's on to next year for your Vikings. And personally, the Seahawks find more ways to win games that they don't deserve to win than any team I can ever remember.
That was the game. I mean, when they were lining up the field goal, I was like, okay, hey, they're finally going to get them.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to finally get them, and
Yeah, now if they can get Marshawn Lynch back, they still have a great defense, and who knows, they might get back to the Super Bowl.
Maybe you guys know more about that story than I do, but from what I read, they were loading up, they were getting on the plane, getting ready to go, and he had practiced all week, and he walked up to the coaching staff as they were getting ready to leave and said, I can't go.
I heard it was his decision, but I didn't know it was that close to, getting on the plane and says, I can't go.
Well, maybe it wasn't, maybe they were embellishing the story a little bit, but certainly sounds like he wasn't exactly stepping up like a team player in that situation.
No.
So we'll see if they even invite him to play in the next game.
Yeah, seriously, I mean, at least ride the plane and go out and warm up and then say, hey, I can't go.
You would think.
Because I'm sure the whole game plan had him involved in it. That was probably they had to probably, adjust on the fly.
And then the other game, the last one, we had the Packers, 35, the Redskins 18. The Packers struggled early, and then they kind of found a rhythm and looked like the Packers of old for a while, with Aaron Rodgers slinging some passes around the field, and their running backs finding some room to run. Their offensive line played pretty well after the first 2 or 3 possessions. But I'm not quite ready to say this Packers team is back.
No, that was another one, a very, very weak division, or off, let's just not say, very off, that division wasn't very good. Shoot, Washington was the first team ever to be below 500, like at the midway point, and make the playoffs or some point to that, or 2 games below 500, because they won their last 4 to finish 9-7. So yeah, they were 5-7, won their last 4. So they're the first team after 12 games, but the losing record, I think, to make the playoffs and win a division. So, I mean, that team was, and their defense, you know, I'm making up excuses for them here, because, you know, Viking fan. But, you know, basically, the Redskins, their defense wasn't the greatest, you know, and the offense is doing some things. Kirk Cousins had a good year, but that division wasn't very strong, similar to what I would say with the Texans. It was just two divisions that had pretty off years, and, you know, and the Packers won it. Credit them, they went there and won the game. They had to win the game, but, yeah.
Good matchup. The Packers just got lucky. That was their first round matchup. Worked out well. And yeah, the Redskins defense is not very good. And I really like Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to be a really solid quarterback in the NFL. And so the Redskins they got some things to look forward to. They're on their way up. This week, the divisional round games, the Chiefs go to the Patriots. I mean, what do you guys think about that game?
New England, tough to beat in the playoffs. I think, you know, the Chiefs as well, so they've been playing, they're going to be hard pressed to find ways to beat this Patriots team.
I just wonder how healthy though the Patriots are, because I think both the
Tight ends are out.
Both tight ends are out, and their receivers are banged up. Escaping my name. Well, both of their Brady's top his favorite wide receivers are kind of out, or have been banged up. Maybe they're not out. So an interesting game. The Chiefs got to go there, you know. But if Alex Smith can put another game together like he had, and the defense can play, you know, it could be interesting, because the Patriots find ways to win too. And as banged up as they are, maybe this is a chance that you can get them, because they haven't had the best down the stretch.
It'll be interesting. The Chiefs are pretty good on the corners, and so they may make it difficult for New England to really get much going with that passing game. And they're not too bad up the middle either against the run. So, yeah, that could be interesting. I think the Chiefs have a chance, but as with New England playing at home in the playoffs, and you always kind of have to give them a little bit of an edge. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Chiefs pull that one off. Packers at the Cardinals. You know, we just talked about the Packers. I mean, I'm not sold that they're 100% back to who they think they are, to quote the old Dennis Green. Devontae Adams apparently is likely to be out for the Packers, and their receiving core is already pretty decimated. They didn't have much to work with to begin with, so I think that's a tough climb for the Packers to go to Arizona and beat the Cardinals with a week's rest.
Yeah, even with that last week 16 or 17, whatever it was for the Cardinals, even that bad game against the Seahawks, I think they're coming in, and defense, you know, I think they missed the Honey Badgers there a little bit in that game against the Seahawks, so they've had a week to adjust that and figure out what they're going to do without Tyrann Mathieu, and you know, maybe they can figure that out in the offense. The offense is lights out. You know, they're going to put up some points. The Packers are going to have to play really good defense to have a chance, and you know, and then they're going to have to figure some things out with those wide receivers. You know, Randall Cobb and James Jones are going to have some big games.
Aaron Rodgers, obviously, though, I think he can be a difference maker. Carson Palmer, you know, he's been around for a while, reliable quarterback. It'll be interesting to see what he does in this playoffs. And then, obviously, locally, it'll be interesting to see what David Johnson can do in his first playoff experience here.
Yeah, the Packers aren't particularly solid against the run at times, and we've seen that they're susceptible to giving up the big play. I don't think Sam Shields is going to play, so they're down one of their better corners. David Johnson could have a big game.
Could definitely break something.
Could be fun. Seahawks at the Panthers. That's going to be interesting. I mean, the Seahawks are the defending. They've been to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. They're playing their best football, I guess, here toward the end of the season. Russell Wilson's playing crazy good. Panthers are a juggernaut. I mean, they've got it all. They just don't seem to have any weaknesses. So how do you guys see that one?
I really like the quarterback matchup in this game with Newton and Wilson, and I think it'll be a very good defensive battle, too, with what Carolina's done throughout the season. So I'd give Carolina the edge at home. I just think their defense has been awfully stingy, and I think they might have a little bit more firepower, more balance on offense.
You know, I like it too. You know, but I tell you, the Seahawks just find ways to do it. And that defense, you know, it was hard to play in that cold Minneapolis, but that defense is so good. And then Russell Wilson, boy, he just doesn't make very many mental mistakes.
Mhm.
You know, with what he does, maybe there's some physical mistakes, but boy, he makes the right decisions, and if he's got to throw it away, somehow he finds a way to fling it forward and past the line of scrimmage.
Great instincts, yeah. You saw how many times Bridgewater took sacks. Wilson wasn't
Yeah.
taking sacks in that game.
It seemed, even as the Vikings won it, I thought Bridgewater sometimes the game was a little bit bigger than him because he took some pretty bad sacks, and where Wilson didn't. So, but yeah, I like that. That's a good matchup, and so that's going to be probably the game, other than wanting to watch David Johnson play against the Packers, that game was the one I really want to watch this week.
I'm curious to see if Seattle can get any kind of pressure on Cam Newton. The games I've watched the Panthers play this year, I mean, he has all day to stand back there and throw the ball. And when he does just feels the slightest bit of pressure, he's so capable of taking off and running. He's really tough to defend. So if they can't find a way to consistently get some pressure on him, it could be a long day for Seattle.
Yeah, it could be a real long day. But I like that Seattle defense too.
Last game, Steelers at the Broncos. I don't know how healthy the Steelers are going to be. I think Antonio Brown, I think, is out. Roethlisberger has a bad shoulder. I mean, you've got to think that they'll find a way to get him put back together and at least send him out there to play. Can't believe he's going to be as effective as they'd like him to be, but we saw what happens when they put their backup in these days. I mean, he's threw an interception in that last playoff game that was almost cost him the game.
And Roethlisberger was back in
Yeah.
with whatever they shot him up with.
So that's an interesting matchup. I'm not a Broncos fan. I'm kind of worn out on the Peyton Manning story, but he's had some time to heal up. Played pretty well in the last half of the last playoff game or last regular season game, and is ready to go. So I got to give the Broncos a nod in this one.
Yeah, I don't know where Pittsburgh goes on offense if Antonio Brown's not playing. It just seems like they run so much through that wide receiver, especially after Bell got injured, that I don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball against that Bronco defense.
Yeah, very good defense. Yeah, that's the thing you forget about because of the Peyton Manning story is you forget how good that Bronco defense is and where they are at right now.
All right, let's turn it to college wrestling a little bit. We got some good things going on in Iowa in college wrestling. Just to touch on a few of them, Iowa State won the Virginia Duels, beat a good Virginia Tech team last weekend. Iowa goes to Northwestern, sets a record for the largest margin of victory in a Big Ten duel, 54-0. UNI split 2 duels on the road. Apparently wrestled pretty well at Northern Illinois and got a win there. And we got Warburg that is just steamrolling everybody.
Yeah, it's a great weekend, a real great weekend. Warburg. Let's start with the small colleges. Warburg, wins their 6th consecutive national dual star. They call it the Matt Mayhem now, but the NWCA national duels, what was referred to as NWCA national duels. They only lost, in 4 matches. In 4 duels, they only lost 4 matches.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and if you look at every one of them, they use different guys in every one to win, and they've got a bunch of position battles. It's going to be interesting. Regionals are coming up here in about a month, and they got position battles at 41, 49, 57, and 285. Half their lineup, they got 2 guys that could be contenders in the national tournament.
Exactly.
And there's no other Division III team that has that. And so it's going to be interesting how that pans out. There's some really good stories there. Eric DeVos has refound him. He went out to Penn out of high school from Waverly Shellrock, and then he ended up at Iowa's room for a year, and now he's back here, and he's a real good buddy with the Steyerts. So they're kind of like his second family. So he's really rolling there, and he's won 6 or 7 matches in a row. He's now up in the rankings, up to 5th in the current rankings, and he had them big. I think he beat 2 ranked guys out there, and this is a team. It's going to be fun to watch. Here's a national tournament in Cedar Rapids this year, so hopefully a big crowd to get out there. Along the same lines, you got to look at Luther was 3-2 at the national duels, and they're starting to get healthy. They're still missing 1 or 2 regular guys, and they get those guys back in. They're going to be a better team. That's this Friday night. Warburg and Luther and Decorah. So for the annual rivalry duel, Iowa Conference duel at 7 o'clock in Decorah on Friday night. So people can go out and see that. And then you look at Upper Iowa. Upper Iowa had a great national duels too. They lost in the second round to Maryville, who was the top seed. But then they won 3 straight matches. The backside to come finish 5th, and they got a pin out of one of their backup heavyweights to win the 5th place match. He won Avery Jacobs with a big pin to win it, and they beat Nebraska Kearney 22-21, so a great weekend for our small colleges. They went out there and competed well. Upper Iowa's going to be, a contender in Division II, and then Wartburg, I think Wartburg is hands above everybody else this year. I felt the same way last year when they lost going into the national tournament, but I think this year they're hand above everybody else in the Division III race.
Could this be the best Wartburg team we've seen?
I can't say that. There's been some pretty good ones, but 10 All-Americans back. Ohio Northern. I'm trying to think. Was that 2002? That team's a tough one to beat, but this team's pretty good. I mean, I don't know if this team's probably deeper than any team I've seen, and I think and they've got guys that could go. I listed 5 weight classes there. There's a couple other weight classes. I think they could throw in another guy, and he'd be a national contender too. I mean, there's really no. 25 could be that one, but they got a junior college national, California, they do it a little different. California has their own national championship. So they got a California junior college national champion at 25. I can't pronounce his name. Arnfulu Olea.
Yeah.
That's my best guess. So anyway, they got him there, but they've had a couple other guys there. 33 Connor Campo is going to be there, So it's just amazing where the depth they have. You don't see that in other rooms. You see some really good Division III teams, but if they lose a guy out of the lineup or 2 guys, then it's a fall down where Wartburg is indoor. They're going to have to make a choice here. Coach Keller's going to have to make a choice of one of these guys here going forward, and they're going to have to determine who's going to be these guys. And I like it. It's going to be a fun tournament. I think this is a great team, and like I said, they just dominated the national duels. You lose 40 matches, they went 36-4. And
I want to see a little mini tournament with just our Iowa colleges wrestling against each other sometime.
that would be fun. It would be fun. I think they would fun. Iowa every year wrestles Cornell, so maybe we're going to have to get Coach Keller and Coach Brands together and have them wrestle. They have the Iowa City duels, and Cornell wrestles in that every year. So maybe we're going to have to get those.
I don't know if you'd want to wrestle the Hawkeyes head to head,
but,
straight up, but I think if you put it in a tournament format, every team in Iowa would have a chance to have some success.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Yeah.
Be a showcase like no one else in the country.
You've got Grandview up there too. That's another good
Yeah,
program.
well, we didn't even mention Grandview won their 5th consecutive national duels title with a former Wartburg at the helm there, wrestler. So Nick Mitchell.
Let's turn to UNI football. The Panthers lost a couple of coaches up from their offensive staff this week. Offensive coordinator Joe Davis is out, and receivers coach Jason Ray is going to Missouri State. His wife and family are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's a student there apparently, and this gives him a chance to be closer to her. You heard anything more, Nellie? I mean, I know I spoke with Coach Farley late last night, and he expects to have somebody added to the staff maybe later this week. But beyond that, he didn't have a whole lot to say about it.
I got some feelers out there. I just think interesting if it was just a mutual decision to go, because it's still prime recruiting time, and usually if as late as January 1 or 2, Coach Davis was still tweeting about UNI Panthers. So I wonder if this is something that just came down the last couple of weeks or last week or so, because this is a prime time. I thought, and Coach Farley was, but the other thing, Coach Farley's at the National Wrestling Coach or National Wrestling. My mind's still on wrestling, but National Football Coaches Association convention down, I'm guessing it's in Frisco right now, or wherever it's at.
Somewhere in Texas, he said, yeah.
So he's at that until Wednesday, so he's not going to be back until Wednesday. So I thought just the timing was interesting, because recruiting signing date's less than 15 days away or so, or maybe a little longer, 20 days away. So I thought they might, at least if they were going to do a mutual with that, they would wait for Davis to get by. You're looking for other thing that he's at this convention now. Maybe he's got some feelers out trying to find a new offensive coordinator. How are they going to do that? Are they going to put Bill Solomon back into the offensive coordinator role from just being...
That would be my guess. He'll probably share it with whoever they bring in, but I think Coach Solomon will be in charge of it for the most part again.
But so the feelers are still out there. I'm trying to see what I can find. And
it's interesting. Speaking with Coach Farley last night, the coaches convention is nothing but a giant job market, basically. I mean, there are thousands of coaches out there, and some of these SEC schools in particular, and there are others as well, but they've all developed these football operations positions where these young coaches can go get a job in some of these major programs and make $60,000, $70,000 a year and not be allowed to coach on the field. So basically, they're just doing external type of things. And it's a pretty attractive way for a lot of them to get into the business. So it's making it a little more difficult for schools like Northern Iowa to find these young guys that they can get for what they can afford to pay them, for one thing. And then, obviously, it's tough to keep them. I think Coach Farley said a couple of his other coaches, Texas Tech is after one of them in particular, and that's not a good thing. I mean, UNI is probably not going to win a battle with Texas Tech to keep a coach. So tough. It's tough to put a staff together and keep a staff together at the FCS level right now.
Yeah, I don't know what it's gonna take to get that, maybe to get those coaches' salaries up there a little bit so we can keep some of these guys around for longer than 1 or 2 years and build some continuity there and, raise this team. They play at a high level already now, but maybe raise this team to another level, if they can get some continuity with those coaches. Obviously, him and Coach Solomon have been around a long time, but, a couple of the other guys have been around, hopefully they can keep these guys around.
I guess on the other side of that, if these FBS programs are showing interest, it means you must be doing something right, and they've got the right type of culture and sending the right people through there. But it does make it a pretty big challenge there for the FCS level.
The other bit of news out of Northern Iowa, I know the athletic director search is underway. They've hired a national firm, I guess, to assist with that search. One interesting name I heard earlier this week that is interested, Terry Allen.
He's got a pretty good thing going down with the Big 12 officials, isn't he? But that would be an interesting hire too. It's a UNI guy coming in. It would be interesting. It would be a football guy, so maybe there might be some extra money coming his way.
Well, if that were to happen, then Farley would be working for Terry Allen again, so that would be kind of an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, that's a really interesting name to hear. I haven't heard that.
I hadn't considered that one, so that was good water cooler talk, I guess. But Nick, before we wrap this up, bring us up to speed on high school basketball. We're kind of heading down the stretch of the regular season. Tournaments will be starting in 3 weeks or so. Who should we keep an eye on?
Well, one interesting thing is the district pairings came out yesterday, and some really interesting matchups. The boys' side always does it geographically pretty much more than anything else, and Dyke New Hartford and Appleton and Parkersburg, just because of location, are going to end up sharing the same district. Dyke New Hartford's undefeated, ranked number 3 or 4, I believe, in 1A, and Appleton and Parkersburg's now up to number 9 in the rankings. Their only loss was a close loss to Dyke. I think they play again coming up pretty soon, but that could be a really good game. And then in 1A, Jessup's gotten off to a nice start this year. They actually lost one of their best players to an ACL injury at the beginning of the season, and they've still recovered. And I think they can make some noise. Janesville has a win over Gladbrook Rhinebeck, the defending state champs. Both of those programs, 1A is always so tough just because of how large of a bracket you have to navigate to get to the state tournament. So you never know what you're going to see out of there, but those are some programs that would definitely be good to keep an eye on. And then, in the big schools, Cedar Falls has been kind of intriguing this season. You just take last week, for example, they got a big win over Dubuque Wahlert with Pemsel, the Iowa recruit, and then they had a tough loss to Linmar over the weekend with Bohannon, I guess, who's going to Iowa as well. So it seems like they've been kind of up and down, but they play in such a difficult league that it's tough to gain a lot of traction there. But I think they have enough talent on that team to be able to make a good run. And then on the girls' side, it was kind of interesting. They have this rivalry Saturday deal down at the U.S. Cellular Center on Saturday, and Turkey Valley beat number 1 Springville, and Turkey Valley was ranked number 3 coming in. They're 12-0. They've got this Shelby Reichs, who's a cross-country distance running standout, and she's kind of their point guard, does it all, shoots some threes, and a junior that's really having a good year and kind of leading that team. But they could make some noise in 1A. And then Waverly Shell Rock's gotten things going. They beat a very good Union team coming out of break, beat Crestwood in a battle with the 2 teams that were undefeated in that league. And then they beat number 1 in Class 3A, Nevada, over the weekend as well. And they've got a kind of a nice big 3 combination with their point guard, who's a 6-footer. And then this Katie Harkin is kind of doing everything for them. And then an interior presence with Becca Pearson, a senior, that's really done a nice job. And then again, in the big schools, Cedar Falls is ranked and coming off a nice win over Linmar over the weekend too. So So a lot of good basketball going on in the area, and it'll be interesting to follow here as we get closer to the postseason.
Yeah, a lot of good individual talent out there too, from what I see and hear. Interesting note with, in regard to Dyke New Hartford, Carson Parker was a star there and is playing really well for Upper Iowa the last few games. First part of the year, he didn't play a whole lot, but he's kind of worked his way into maybe even the starting lineup, I'm not sure, but he's playing well, and he's got it going a little bit, so that's good to see. They've got it going a little bit. Got a couple other local guys too on the Upper Iowa team. Mitchell Amy from Waterloo-Columbus is playing a little bit, and Ethan Steinbraun, a big guy from West Central Maynard, he's seeing pretty significant minutes too, so
Yep.
that team's got a little Cedar Valley flair to it.
Yeah, with Brooks McCowan running the program,
Yeah.
I think that's helped really bring a nice local presence there, and yeah, I think you'll start seeing more and more kids from the area gravitating towards that school.
Good stuff. All right, we're going to wrap it up. As always, you can catch all the sports action in our print editions or at wcfcourier.com, and we'll be back next week.